Imagine being so powerful that after your death, an entire civilization tried to pretend you never existed. Your name chiseled off every temple, your face smashed from every statue, your city abandoned and buried under sand, your own son forced to change his name to erase any connection to you. This wasn't done to a criminal. It wasn't done to a traitor or a coward. It was done to a pharaoh, a king who sat on the most powerful throne in the ancient world. His name was Akhenaten, and for over 3,000 years, Egypt tried to erase him completely from history. Today, we find out why. To understand what Akhenaten did and why it terrified everyone around him, you need to understand the Egypt he was born into. For thousands of years, ancient Egypt had been held together by one thing above all else: religion. The Egyptians worshipped hundreds of gods: Amun, Ra, Osiris, Isis, Horus. Each one controlled a different part of life, death, and the universe. The priests who served these gods were some of the most powerful people in the kingdom. They controlled temples, land, armies of servants, and unimaginable wealth. The pharaoh himself was considered a god, the living embodiment of Horus on earth. But even the pharaoh worked within this system. He respected the priests. He funded the temples. He kept the gods happy. This system had worked for over 1,000 years, was the foundation of Egyptian civilization. And then Akhenaten became pharaoh, and he decided to burn it all down. Akhenaten was born around 1370 BC, originally named Amenhotep IV. He was the son of the great pharaoh Amenhotep III, one of the wealthiest and most powerful rulers Egypt had ever known. From the beginning, something was different about him. Ancient carvings show him with an unusually elongated face, wide hips, a protruding belly, and thin arms. Historians still debate whether this was a medical condition, a new artistic style, or deliberate symbolism. Nobody knows for certain. What we do know is that early in his reign, Akhenaten did something that no pharaoh had ever dared to do. He declared that there was only one god, not Amun, not Ra, not any of the hundreds of deities that Egyptians had worshipped for centuries. Just one, the Aten, the sun disk, the physical light of the sun itself. He changed his own name from Amenhotep, meaning Amun is satisfied, to Akhenaten, meaning servant of the Aten. He ordered the closure of every temple in Egypt. He stripped the priests of their wealth and power. He sent workers across the kingdom to chisel the name of Amun, Egypt's most worshipped god, off every wall, every column, every monument they could find. And then he did something even more radical. He built an entirely new city from scratch, in the middle of the desert, and declared it the new capital of Egypt. He called it Akhenaten, the horizon of the Aten. Today we call it Amarna, and it is one of the strangest archaeological sites on Earth. Amarna was built at astonishing speed, an entire city rising from bare desert in just a few years. Temples, palaces, workers' villages, royal tombs, all of it constructed at the command of one man who believed he had found the truth about the universe. Life in Amarna was unlike anything else in the ancient world. Akhenaten and his famous queen, Nefertiti, one of the most iconic faces in human history, ruled as the sole intermediaries between the people and the Aten. Only through the royal family could ordinary Egyptians access their god. The art that came out of Amarna was revolutionary. Unlike the rigid, formal style of traditional Egyptian art, Amarna art was soft, natural, intimate. We see Akhenaten playing with his daughters, Nefertiti kissing her children, the royal family eating together, laughing, living. It was completely unlike anything Egypt had produced before. But behind the beauty of this new city, something darker was happening. Skeletal remains found in Amarna's worker cemeteries show signs of severe malnutrition, heavy labor, and early death. The people who built and maintained Akhenaten's dream were suffering. Meanwhile, Egypt's empire was crumbling. Diplomatic letters discovered by archaeologists, known as the Amarna letters, show foreign allies desperately begging Egypt for military help. Kingdoms that had been loyal to Egypt for generations were being overrun by enemies. Akhenaten ignored them. He was focused on his god. Egypt, the most powerful civilization on Earth, was quietly falling apart. Akhenaten ruled for approximately 17 years. Then, around 1336 BC, he vanished from the historical record. We don't know exactly how he died. No confirmed tomb has ever been found. A mummy discovered in a tomb called KV55 in the Valley of the Kings is believed by many Egyptologists to be Akhenaten, but even that is disputed. The face had been deliberately destroyed, the cartouche scratched off. After his death, everything unraveled with breathtaking speed. A young boy became Pharaoh. You may know his name because his tomb is the most famous archaeological discovery in history. That boy was born Akhenaten, meaning living image of the Aten. He was forced to change his name to Tutankhamun. The old gods were back. The priests returned. The temples reopened. Amarna was abandoned almost overnight. Its people ordered to leave. The city left to the sand and the wind. And then the real erasure began. A later pharaoh named Horemheb, a former general, launched a systematic campaign to erase Akhenaten from history entirely. His name was hacked off temple walls. His statues were smashed and buried in pits. His city was dismantled. Its stones reused in other buildings. The official list of Egyptian kings, the document that recorded every pharaoh who had ever ruled, simply skipped from Amenhotep III to Horemheb, as if Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and the entire Amarna period had never happened. For over 3,000 years, it worked. The world forgot he existed. It was only in the 19th century, when archaeologists began excavating the buried ruins of Amarna, that the truth began to resurface. Slowly, piece by piece, a broken statue here, a chiseled wall there, a city rising from the sand. Egypt's most dangerous pharaoh had been hiding in the desert the whole time. Here's the question that historians have been debating for over a century. Was Akhenaten a visionary, the first monotheist in human history, centuries ahead of his time? Or was he a tyrant, a deluded ruler who tore apart a civilization in service of his own obsession? Some scholars point to the extraordinary art of Amarna, the warmth, the humanity, the revolution in how Egyptians depicted themselves and the world around them. Others point to the suffering workers, the neglected empire, the religious persecution of millions of people who had worshipped their gods for 1,000 years, and some go even further. They point out that Akhenaten's worship of a single, all-powerful, invisible god, represented only by light, bears a striking resemblance to the monotheism that would emerge later in the ancient world. Some have even suggested a connection to the biblical story of Moses and the Exodus, though this remains deeply contested. What we know for certain is this: a man lived, he changed everything he touched, and the people who came after him were so terrified of what he represented that they spent generations trying to make sure nobody would ever know his name. They failed. We remember him. Akhenaten is one of those figures who makes you realize that history isn't a straight line. Civilizations rise and collapse. Ideas appear, get buried, and resurface thousands of years later. And sometimes the most powerful people in the world are the ones that someone else tried hardest to erase. So, was Akhenaten a genius or a madman, a prophet or a tyrant? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. And if you're watching this for the first time, this channel is dedicated to exactly these kinds of stories. The history that got buried, the people that got erased, the events that changed everything and then disappeared from the record. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. It's going to be just as buried and just as wild.